Here's Mark on the line from Toronto. Mark, what are your thoughts about this?
Well, I was actually on your show in December, Dale, because we were talking about closing community centres at that time. And at that time, I said that Toronto charges about a 70% discount on using the recreation programs. We've really only got three choices. We can increase taxes, we can start to apply or increase user fees to what everywhere else in Ontario pays, or we can start closing facilities. So we turned down the option of closing facilities. We have rescinded taxes, and now we're also saying that we're not willing to raise user fees to what the rest of the province pays.
Well, the City of Toronto did raise taxes. Don't forget that.
But
they raise taxes.
Withdrew the vehicle registration tax.
Well, yes, they did that as well. You're right. You're right.
We've got people of Toronto have to make a choice. If these things are as important as they say they are, somebody's got to pay for them. I'm paying an extra $50 a year for my kids to do soccer at the Cherry Beach location. That's a great facility. I'm being charged $1.79 a game for my kids to play. I mean, there are facilities and there are teams and there are leagues that should be paying. There are people on your panel tonight who shouldn't be paying. But by making everybody free, you put everybody's programs at risk.
So in other words, maybe a little more attention should have been given to the people who are using these fields and who can pay and who can't pay, and maybe talk to them, about it as well.
Well, and the quality of the fields. I mean, Cherry Beach is a fantastic, recycled facility. It's made out of old tires and pop bottles and stuff. It's got lights. It's got drainage. We should be paying for that facility versus somebody in Scarborough or somewhere who doesn't have the quality of facility.
May have a very modest facility, to say the least.
But the principle in general should be that we should be paying what other places in Ontario pay and then directing the subsidies at the individuals or organizations that need a subsidy.
Well, what are other municipalities in Ontario paying? What do you know about that?
Well, City of Mississauga did a full review of all their recreation pricing last year. And that's up online and on the web, and they're paying around about the same price as we're paying. They also had a 7 or 8% tax increase on their property taxes this year.
Yeah, that's true.
If we want to do this stuff, we have to be able to put our money where our mouth is.
Yeah. Mark, thank you. Thank you very much for your call. Any thoughts, reaction to what Mark is saying?
Well, I don't disagree with him. We have services that have to be paid for. I guess the question is, how do you determine which teams can afford to pay and those that cannot?
Yeah, that's a tough task.
And you have to establish fees that are at a point that maintain their affordability.
Yeah.
So it's a very delicate exercise of trying to decide where is that line.
John, what did you want to add to that?
Premier fields have always had a charge in the City of Toronto, like the gentleman called from Cherry Beach.
The well-equipped ones, right?
Well-equipped ones. They've been around for some period of time, particularly in the soccer world. And if you want to use them, you pay for them.
You pay, right.
But that is not what we're here talking about. We're talking about the field that they say they cut every week. Well, okay, that's what they say, maybe.
Yeah, they say it, right.
Or, and that has strewn with garbage that the players pick up before the game to make sure, and the coaches and the parents to make sure kids don't get hurt.
Areas where you're helping to maintain them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so there is a difference between what the gentleman called about and what we're dealing with.
Well, there's another classification that would have to be taken into account before you start levying fees, I think, David, on everybody.
That's correct. The caller also said that this is something that's gone across the province, and we're also aware of a number of communities that are still not charging user fees for these types of facilities. So it's a broad brush type of statement.
The type of facility is what we're talking about, right? Yeah.
Right. And when we're looking at some of what we might address as bedroom communities to Toronto, they're looking at much newer facilities. Our facilities are, as we've all addressed, certainly in need of a great deal more maintenance. These fees do not address that.
No. It will not improve. This fee will not
It won't do anything to pick up one pop can or cut one blade of grass.
Not a single extra staff will be hired.
So you'd be paying the fee and still cleaning up the facilities, right?
What's not even been addressed is for leagues that have put significant maintenance on an annual basis into their facilities. They wouldn't even be given credit for it at this point in time. those administrative type issues haven't been addressed yet.
What
by
kinds
parks.
of things? What kind of improvements? Give us an idea.
Well, as an example, Andrew Pace from East York Baseball said they put $13,000 of clay and material and other things into
made a real baseball diamond
into Stan Wadlow Park last year,
Yeah.
and that's sort of their average for regular maintenance. On top of that, they were able to do some fundraising. They put new lights in so that they could layer in extra games for their older players.
Yeah.
And now they're going to pay $53,000
So now they'll pay a fee on top of that and
use
get
the
no
fields
credit.
that they just enhanced.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, and that's what I think they're upset about. They see.
Well, it's not fair. It clearly isn't fair.
No. And I do think we have a collective responsibility to ensure that as many kids as possible are remaining active. And I think it should come out of the general tax base, just like we fund other things out of the general tax base, because it's very hard to determine, you know, this kind of affordability. The general tax base pools the funds. And
but again, we're talking about two kinds of facilities here too. We got to make that clear. As John said, teams know that if they go to the premier fields that are all lit and all gussied up, you expect that you will pay a fee. Other modest fields that have been looked after by the players and their volunteers themselves, that's a whole different story.
And they're classified as A, B, and C fields, I believe. And last night there was someone who said very clearly, if you're going to charge based on this classification of fields, you're going to have to go back and review all of those ratings, because they certainly aren't the same kind of
What is the A field, John, correspond to the kinds of fields you were talking about where you would pay?
Well, no,
Or is it the other way around?
there's always been a premier level field.
Oh, beyond that?
Beyond that.
Yes.
And now they've created these levels underneath where if they cut the grass once, it's got some irrigation, it's an A.
Yeah.
If they cut the grass once, it's a B, and if they cut the grass twice a month, it's a C. And the fees are not really that much different between one and the other.
And they have to cut the grass anyway,
Well,
no matter whether anyone's playing in the fields,
whether
in the
anybody
parks or
walked
not.
into the field or not. Okay, let's get